ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. We shall continue on our journey of Ishavasya Upanishad. Today we will take the mantras 12, 13 and 14, which are again very profound, very deep, highly, I would say the most scientific writing of any time. Now, we'll start with mantra 12, but they will all come together. And before we actually start the mantra, the explanation of the mantra, we will understand two words very clearly, Sambhuti and Asambhuti. So let's start with verse 12. Andhatame pravishanti ye sambhuti mupaste tato bhuye ivte mayo ये संभूता रता. जो संभूति की उपासना करते हैं वे घोर अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं, और जो संभूति में रत हैं वे मानो उससे भी अधिक अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं. तो जो असंभूति की उपासना करते हैं वे घोर अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं, और जो संभूति में रत हैं वो उससे भी ज्यादा अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं. Now we need to understand Sambhuti and Asambhuti. We have what we call Panch Mahabhut. Bhut means manifest. The world which is manifest is called Bhut. So it is Panch Mahabhut, for example, they are the manifestation of nature, and they grow into more and more density as we move forward. Like Akash is the first manifestation, which is very subtle. Then Vayu is the second manifestation, which arises from Akash, which is little more dense. Because Akash you cannot touch, it affects nothing. You construct a building and you demolish it, nothing happens. The Akash remains as it is. But Vayu is impacted. You can put in a tire and you blast it. It can even create havoc when there's a very strong wind. So that is stronger. And then comes Agni, that is in a way Prakash. Now Agni is very strong, more strong than, or more sthul, more gross than air. And then comes water, which is even more gross, more sthul. And then comes the earth. So the elements become from subtle to more and more gross as we move forward. So this is the process of nature in which the manifestation happens. Manifestation starts with most subtle and then slowly turns into gross. Let's take another example of our own self. We have an idea in our mind. Now that idea in the mind is a subtle thing. It's not known to anybody else. But once you put that into effect, the manifestation will start. For example, I'm thinking of a conference on Vedas. Now, so long as that idea remains in my mind, it's very subtle, nobody knows, nobody can, perceive it through sense organs. But as I start booking the venue, contacting the participants, printing the invitation or sending the invitations, making other arrangements, the things become manifest. They become in the modern language, in our language, they become concrete. So the manifestation starts from subtle to gross. Then you can see a conference actually happening. So slowly, slowly, the gross takes over and subtle, you know, is replaced by gross. So this is the process everywhere. The whole universe runs on that basis. Now, if you look at these two words, Asambhuti and Sambhuti, they demonstrate this process. Asambhuti means the things which have not manifest so far. They are in the state of a seed. Like a seed, when you sow it into the earth, it grows into a big tree. But when you look at the seed, it does not show the tree. There's no tree in the seed. You can crush it, nothing would be found. No leaves, no flowers, no trunk, nothing will be found. But as soon as it grows, it turns into a huge tree with tons of material. So similarly, the whole universe comes from what we call Asambhut to Sambhut. Asambhut means which is beyond sense perceptions. जो चीज हमारी इंद्रियों को इंद्रियां ग्रहण नहीं कर सकती, इंद्रियां की जो शक्ति है वो वहां तक नहीं पहुंचती. जैसे my mind is having ideas, your sense organs cannot reach those ideas. But once I start putting those ideas into practice, then you can see them. The manifestation starts. So Asambhuti is in a way avyakt. But avyakt has two, stages. The first stage of avyakt is extremely subtle. This is called causal state. And then the second stage is suksham stage, which is very, very subtle. And then comes manifested state. So Asambhuti is the form of avyakt, and vyakt is the form of Sambhuti. So now we will understand these three mantras after understanding the meaning of Asambhuti and Sambhuti. जो असंभूति की उपासना करते हैं वो घोर अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं. जो नॉन मैनिफेस्ट, थिंग्स विच आर नॉन मैनिफेस्ट, if you worship those things, then you go to the darkness. Why? Because those people who do not understand the manifest, they can never understand the non-manifest. The non-manifest is deeper, it's more profound, it's the root cause, and therefore, without understanding the manifest, there's no way to understand the non-manifest. The non-manifest is the birthplace where the birth happens and the manifest world comes into being. But since our sense organs can only understand the manifested world, in order to understand the non-manifest, you first have to understand the manifest. So this correlation has been explained in these three verses. And they are so profound that we have to meditate over these verses again and again. Now, those people who are worshipping the Supreme in the non-manifest form, they go to the darkness. Now, a large number of people, like for example, in some religions, they do not believe in manifest God. They do not believe in what we call, temples or the pratima of the Supreme, and they claim that they want to worship the non-manifest. Now, those people can never understand what is non-manifest. And what they are doing is basically a pretext, not a correct version. Because to understand that non-manifest form, they first have to understand the manifest and then slowly, slowly go backwards to understand what is the most subtle. Like a scientist, he wants to understand the subtle part of a particular mineral. He takes the mineral, then he slowly, slowly breaks it into pieces, and then those pieces are analyzed, and then he understands the most minute piece of it, and then he understands the whole thing. But without understanding the mineral, he cannot understand the, the particle of it. So the process for us is starting from the gross and then going to the subtle one by one, going backwards. Like we start in our life from today, then we go backward, 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 and then backward to the cause of my birth, why I was born. Then we can understand it. But without understanding the manifest form today, if you go to the most subtle form, then you cannot understand it. So this is what this verse is telling, that those people who are worshipping the Supreme in non-manifest form, Nirgun Nirakar form, they go to the darkness because they fail to understand the Supreme properly. And that is the reason they go to the darkness. Then the next part of the verse is even more complicated. It says, जो संभूति में रत है वे मानो उससे भी अधिक अंधकार में प्रवेश करते हैं. Those who are worshipping the Supreme in the manifest form, in the form, in a temple, for example, you have pran pratishtha of a statue, and then you worship. Now, if you are engaged in that, that is one meaning of it, only in that. Without trying to understand the Asambhut, the non-manifest, then you go to the greater darkness. So, the verse number 14 will explain the process, but I don't want to go there right away. Today, in this verse, at this moment, Sambhuti means the manifest form of the Supreme and also the manifest form of this universe, of the world. So it has two meanings here. One is to worship the manifest form of the Supreme, like Rama or Krishna or whatever form we take, Shiva, and then to remain. Rat means totally, involved into that process. They also go into greater darkness. The other meaning of this is those who remain involved in the world. The all kinds of inducements are there. The money, the prestige, the power, all these things are there in this world. If you remain engaged in that constantly, then also you go to greater darkness. So this verse tells us two things. That there are two different meanings which have been analyzed by the wise. The one meaning is that to worship the non-manifest and to worship the manifest form of the Supreme. The other meaning is to run away from the world, that is Asambhut, and go to the forest and live all alone. And the second Sambhuti meaning is to live in this world and remain completely engaged with the temptations of the world, like your family, your friends, and then money, and then power, and then prestige, and all that. So these two different meanings we have to understand. Now, both meanings carry us to the same final conclusion. So I will go straight away to verse number 13 and then 14, and then we will analyze this whole thing in detail. Now, verse number 13 says that ब्रह्म कार्य की उपासना से और ही फल बतलाया गया है, और अव्यक्त की उपासना से और ही फल बतलाया गया है, ऐसा हमने बुद्धिमानों से सुना है जिन्होंने हमारे लिए इसकी व्याख्या की है. Now, this is basically an explanation, an intermediary mantra, which tells us that if you know the non-manifest, the outcome is different. If you know the manifest, the outcome is different. And then he comes to the verse number or mantra number 14, which says, जो असंभूति और कार्य ब्रह्म इन दोनों को साथ साथ जानता है, जो असंभूति और संभूति दोनों को साथ साथ जानता है, वह संभूति की उपासना से मृत्यु को पार करके असंभूति के द्वारा अमृत को प्राप्त करता है. Now this is what we have to understand. Now, before we go in greater detail, I would also like to take verse number 17 of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Which also deals with this subject indirectly. It says, युक्ताहार विहारस्य युक्त चेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्त स्वप्रभाव बोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः. दुखों के नाश करने वाला योग यथा योग्य आहार विहार करने वाले का, कर्मों में यथा योग्य चेष्टा करने वाले का, यथा योग्य सोने और जागने वाले का सिद्ध होता है. Now let's understand this whole thing. Now, the final verse number 14, which explains this whole process, it says that you should first worship the Sambhut, the manifest part of the universe, understand it properly. Worship means you have to understand it properly. Then you carry out your duties, whatever duties are involved. And then you slowly proceed towards Asambhut and understand the Asambhut, the non-manifest part. This is the, I would say, literal meaning of this verse. That first we understand the Sambhut, what is manifest. Now let us take it in two different forms, which I mentioned earlier. First, let's take in the form of the world. So first we understand the manifest world, Sambhut, manifest world, the world which exists, the world which has been explained in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, like a tree with roots upwards and the branches downwards. So we are delving with the branches. We are remaining engaged with our family, with our spouse, and then we remain engaged with power structure. We remain engaged in earning wealth. Then we remain engaged in earning prestige in the society. So all that is remaining engaged in the world. So once you remain engaged in all these things in the world, slowly, slowly you will realize the futility of all this engagement. You will feel that this engagement gives you transient happiness, happiness for a short while, and then it turns into unhappiness. Like America and Zelensky were great friends, and today they have become great enemies. You can also see in your own world And you must have been friend with so many people in the past and today they turn into enemies, and vice versa. So this world is full of these dualities, and we must understand those dualities, that whatever happiness you get, that is transient, and ultimately you will go back to the unhappiness. So this is what we have to understand by Sambhut, Sambhuti, that you remain engaged in Sambhuti and you understand the manifest world. Then slowly, slowly you go backwards. Where does this manifest world come from? Everything which is manifest comes into being through non-manifest. Everything. That is the uh, law of nature. That is the universal law of nature. As I explained, a seed becomes into a tree, a fetus becomes into a full-fledged human being, a thought in the mind becomes into a language, into a word, or a book, or a speech. So everything starts with non-manifest. So therefore, we should go back to that manifest, non-manifest, and slowly, slowly understand that. Like scientist is trying to understand how this particular, particle was formed. So he understands first he understands the matter, then he goes to the atom, then he divides the atom into proton, neutron, and electron. Then he further divides them into quark or whatever they call it. And then he divides them and he goes to the wave. It turns into wave. So this is the process he tries to understand, but he's not able to fully understand till date. So this is the process we have to follow also. We understand the Sambhut world. We understand its futility. That is what spirituality is. Spirituality enables us to understand the futility of this manifest world. And then slowly, slowly, we delve deeper. We go deeper. We go to the roots, the non-manifest. Like we see the house, which is, you see the drawing room and you see the bedroom and you see the kitchen. But you don't know how these are standing there. They are standing on the foundation, which is not visible. So the foundation, we have to go and see how this drawing room and bedroom and kitchen are existing. So slowly, slowly we go to the foundation. Similarly, in this manifest world, after understanding this, we slowly, slowly go back and understand how the non-manifest comes into being. Manifest comes into being through non-manifest. And we understand the non-manifest. So once we understand the manifest and the non-manifest together, then you are able to transcend the world of Maya through the manifest and the world of Amrit, world of immortality through non-manifest. This is what this verse is telling us, this whole process. Now that is in the context of the world. Now let's understand this in the context of the Supreme. Now we worship the Supreme in the manifest form, in the form in a temple where we have put up a form and we worship that. Now, by understanding that, we perform certain rituals, yagyas, and all that. Now we must understand that these yagyas, these rituals, this worshipping is important or useful only when we understand how the non-manifest came into manifest form. So slowly, slowly, we try to understand the non-manifest. All our literature, the ancient literature, Upanishads, Gita, all the Puranas, they tell us exactly the same thing. That from the manifest, go backward and slowly, slowly open the door of the non-manifest from where the whole thing starts. And like in this Upanishad, we started Ishavasya Midam Sarvam, that Paramatma ka nivas sab jagah hai. Now that non-manifest Paramatma, which is Nirgun, which is Nirakar, which is not in any form, which is like, a sort of uh, mm, curtain everywhere over the entire universe, which is prevailing everything in this universe, we need to understand that slowly, slowly. And then our process becomes complete. That how the manifest came into being through the non-manifest, and where that non-manifest exists in every form, in everywhere, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. That we have to understand. We have to understand what we call Satchit Anand, that the truth, the Chetana Chit, and Anand, the eternal bliss. So we understand these things in this process. So this particular, you know, set of three mantras, mantra 12, 13, and 14, they explain to us that don't discard this manifest world. Don't discard the manifest form of the Supreme. From that manifest, slowly, slowly, you move towards non-manifest. Like you see the rain, and then you go backward. The rain came from the clouds. How the clouds were formed? It was formed because of the heat which put the water into the sky. The heat came from where? It came from the sunshine. The sun came from where? It came from the Supreme. So slowly, slowly we go backward in every journey of our life. And from that process of going backwards, we reach a point where we reach the most subtle part of our existence. And that is what we do in the human form also. Like we look at this BMI, body mind complex. We see this big body, then we see that this big body is run by these small sense organs, five senses of action and perception. And then we see these sense organs are run by our mind. Without mind being with the eyes, we cannot see. Without mind being with the ears, we cannot hear. Without mind being with the tongue, we cannot taste. So they are run by the mind. And the mind is regulated by the intellect. And then we go backward, how the intellect, mind, and the whole body complex works. There is a thing called Chaitanya. There is a consciousness which operates them. And through this process, we start recognizing the consciousness. This is the backward journey in every form, in the form wherever we are. So the journey has to be started with the form. Slowly, slowly, we go backward, 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 and we find the non-manifest from where everything originates. This is what the crux of these three mantras is. If we perform that journey according to this principle, then we will be able to understand the entire mystery of this universe. The mystery of the manifest and the mystery of the non-manifest, both will be known to us. Then we will know that what leaves our body, which leaves it completely non-functional and starts degenerating, that part which leaves the body is so subtle that we do not grasp it through sense organs, because the sense organs are running because of that part, and that part is consciousness. So that Asambhut, which is non-manifest, which is beyond the power of sense organs, has to be understood in this process. So let me go back to verse number 14 again to reiterate the whole process. जो संभूति और कार्य ब्रह्म इन दोनों को एक साथ जानता है. कार्य ब्रह्म हियर इज संभूति एंड जो असंभूति और कार्य ब्रह्म. जो असंभूति दैट इज नॉन मैनिफेस्ट, कार्य ब्रह्म इज द मैनिफेस्ट, द संभूति. दोनों को एक साथ जानता है. वह कार्य ब्रह्म की उपासना, दैट इज संभूति की उपासना करके मृत्यु को पार होता है और असंभूति के द्वारा अमृत्यु को प्राप्त करता है. So this is the process we have to follow in our life. If we want to transcend this world, first we have to understand this manifest world, futility of this world, and then we try and discover the non-manifest, the supreme in Nirgun Nirakar form, and through that process we reach immortality. And this is the process which I mentioned in Gita. We have to follow a middle path. Those people who run away from this world, they cannot understand. You have to stay in the world and then understand. Now, in this context, I would like to mention a little bit about Mahakumbh. When I went to Mahakumbh, I had an occasion to meet some Naga sadhus. Now, these Naga sadhus, basically Digambar sadhus, they live in mountains, in caves, all alone, without proper habitation. Now, I remember when I went to Kailas Mansarovar in 93, at the altitude of 17, 18, 19,000 feet, I met some people who were in their langot completely. The temperature was minus 15, minus 20. We were wearing all kinds of heavy clothing, and those people could walk without any problem in langot. Now, these kind of people who live with very limited food, with very limited clothing, and with practically no facilities of the modern world, how they achieve that? They are actually called Videhi. They remain in the body only for sake of it, because they have abandoned all the bodily requirements and they have realized the reality of the soul. They live in the soul. Therefore, body does not really bother them much, and that is why they can live with very limited food and very limited clothing. Now, these people, when they pass through this journey in the beginning, I'm talking about the genuine ones. There may be some non-genuine as well, but genuine ones, they give up all their desires in the world. They give up all the pleasures of their sense organs. And in that sense, they become Videhi. They have the Dehi, but Dehi is just symbolic. They live in the consciousness. They are constantly, what you call in the company of the consciousness alone. And that is why they have, while being in the body, they become Videhi. Now, this Videhi word is a very unique word in Indian spiritual tradition, that people have the body, but they have confined themselves to the consciousness. And this is the secret of Naga sadhus. The genuine sadhus, they remain confined to their consciousness. They have given up all the desires of the body, all the expectations from the body, and therefore body is just practically non-existent for them. And that is why they can live in those kind of conditions. Otherwise, none of us can go and live in those conditions in high altitude areas without clothing, without proper food. None of us can imagine that life. But that life is possible because they have reached a higher stage of consciousness. They live in their consciousness. Body is just there because they were born in the body, but they have abandoned the body, bodily desires and bodily need in the process of becoming Naga sadhu. So this is what we learn from some of these, great saints in our ancient time, that how we can turn the body irrelevant and remain engaged in the consciousness. This is the crux of these three verses, that yes, we start with the body, we engage in the body, But slowly, slowly, we must realize the futility of that body, and we should realize that this body originates from somewhere. So we do that research. The whole spiritual research is designed to lead us backward in that journey, that where this body comes from, where the origin of this, manifest world lies, and then slowly, slowly we reach that point which is Nirgun, Nirakar, and all pervading. That is what Ishavasya Sarvam Jagatyam Jagat. That is the supreme which is pervading everything. Every single existence in this world originates from there, and he pervades that. And that is what Bhagavad Gita also mentioned in a variety of ways, including chapter 9, in which he actually gave very profound knowledge of how this world exists. So let me just tell you this, this verse number 2, which says, मेरी उत्पत्ति अर्थात लीला से प्रकट होने को न देवता लोग जानते हैं न महर्षि जानते हैं, क्योंकि मैं उन सब का आदि कारण हूं। न मैं विदु सुरगुणा प्रभवम न महर्षय अहमादर ही देवानाम महर्षि नाम च सर्वश। सबका आदि कारण हूं मैं। एंड देन ही सेज अल्टीमेटली, मैं वासुदेव ही संपूर्ण जगत की उत्पत्ति का कारण हूं और मुझसे ही सब जगत चेष्टा करता है। इस प्रकार समझकर श्रद्धा और भक्ति से युक्त बुद्धिमान भक्तजन मुझ परमेश्वर को निरंतर भजते हैं। So he is the root cause of all that exists in this world, and that is what we need to understand. That understanding comes through this backward journey from Sambhut to Asambhut, and this is what this whole process of these 3 verses is all about. This is indirectly linked with the previous 3 verses on Vidya and Avidya, but these are 2 different manifestations. Vidya and Avidya are talking about knowledge and darkness, and here it is talking about the manifest world and non-manifest world. So this is what we conclude today, and let us move in that journey from Sambhut to Asambhut. Slowly, slowly we reach the stage of Nirgun Nirakar, and once we reach that stage, then we will be one with the Supreme. Thank you.